When playing Commander, oftentimes we like to assign levels of power or tiers to decks we play. I have done this, you have probably done this, and WotC is slowly starting to do this now too. Today, I want to go into a deep dive on how I've been thinking about the difference between casual decks and competitive decks. When playing in my usual playgroup, I often find some of my friends have severely different powered level decks that they like to play with. Some of them are fast, some of them are slow, some are really oppressive, and others are really fragile. Each of them has its own approach to how they play the game. The game of Magic is so interesting, and I've started to ask myself, what truly is the difference between your measly old precon and a highly tuned cEDH deck? Decks that can win the game in 3 to 4 turns. Turns that last 10 years long. I'm looking at you, Bant players. Players that can navigate very complex lines that require multiple steps with tutors and spellcasts. I asked myself, what categories truly contribute to these differences? Budget? Not really. I've seen $100 deck brews that are able to take down fully functional cEDH decks. Player skill? Not that either. I could give you my Rocco deck right now, and you probably wouldn't know exactly how to win with it. Same goes if you gave me a Rogside deck or a Blue Farm deck. I would have no clue what I'm doing. Commander selection? This thought was a bit closer, but most commanders can be pushed to their max capacity and win games consistently when played right. Deck building? Now this is where I stop, because this truly is a yes, but also a no. It's a yes in terms of selecting the right cards for the job and choosing cards you understand and can afford, but also it's a no, because what I think is more important in determining what is casual and what is competitive is approach. This was it. How I could finally understand and explain how I separate the two. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like content like this, feel free to like and subscribe. Your support means a lot to me, and when you like the video and subscribe and comment, it sends my video out to other people that might like that content too. Also, feel free to check out my Patreon in the description below where you can get an extra video per week. We have lots of different tiers where I can review decks that you have made, I can make a deck for you, and you can recommend videos that you'd like to see. Lots of awesome perks, and we got plenty of people there. You might as well sign up too. Now let's get back to the video. I decided to make a graph because I wanted to get creative. In this bubble, you have casual commander. How I would most broadly describe a casual commander deck is this deck does a thing. Make small creatures big? Great, you're in. Make a ton of tokens? Great, you're in. Draw an absolutely absurd amount of cards? Great, you're in. Deck yourself out? You're in as well. This bubble is the biggest as it encapsulates most every deck you will typically see in Commander. The goal of casual decks and casual Commander, and really Commander in the first place, is just to do a thing. And this does not have to equate to winning a game. Take my Gitrog deck for example. All I want to do is loop lands from my battlefield to my graveyard and back to my battlefield with a scape shift like effect. I want to get plenty of landfall triggers, but also I love sacrificing lands to draw a ton of cards through Gitrog. It's just a really cool strategy, and it's very risky, but it's also a ton of fun and doesn't necessarily win me the game every time. If I can do this at least once a game, I'm really satisfied. And take my Xyrus deck. I want to sling 4 to 5 combat tricks in a single turn on Xyrus so I can one-shot a player, draw a ton of cards, and make a ton of snakes. Now, sometimes this does result in a victory, but the victory is not the point. I want to do the thing. Now, let's look back at the graph. Inside the casual circle, we have high power. High power goes inside of the casual circle because it comprises of decks that still want to do a thing. The biggest difference, however, with high power is that it just does it more often, more consistently, and probably more efficiently. Now let's take my Muldratha for example. This fills up my graveyard way faster than a Gitrog deck. It mills my entire deck out in around 10 to 12 turns, and I get to do the thing so much more effectively with a bunch of removal and protection. Now let's look at Ishai Tana. I still cast a ton of spells to one-shot somebody with Ishai or Tana from my combat tricks. However, I now have access to more protection, better and more consistent card draw because it's not reliant on my commanders, much more removal, and a lot of flexibility in if I want to go more of the token route or more of the combat tricks route based on the commander I cast. Oftentimes, because higher power does the thing, but better, it typically does result in more wins. But it's not necessarily there to always just go and win the game as fast as possible. You're really just trying to do the thing as effectively as possible. Or maybe not even as possible. Maybe you don't care about min-maxing, you just really want to do the thing and you want to do it all the time. And sometimes you'll get a win from doing that. So, casual is when you do a thing, and high power is when you do the thing only better. Got it. So then where does cEDH fall? You and I both ask. Inside these circles? Outside of them? Where does it go? I put cEDH connected to but still outside this casual circle. The biggest difference between casual and cedh, in my opinion, is approach. The cedh approach is to win. Nothing more, nothing less. As you can see though, it still touches the philosophy of doing a thing. However, doing the thing in this case is winning the game. This is why I say budget, player skill, and even deck building aren't nearly as important as approach. Linked below, I have two Rocco Cabaretti Caterer decks. One is $400 and wins the game by setting up a sack outlet or having a removal spell handy. You cast Rocco for X equals 4 to tutor up an Arena Rector. Then once you find a way to sacrifice Arena Rector or destroy it with one of your own abilities, you search up for Vivian on the Hunt. You then use her +2 ability to sack Arena Rector to go get yourself a Felidar Guardian. Then through more looping of this, you find a Felidar Guardian Kiki Jiki combo after getting a Karmic Guide and resummoning your Felidar Guardian. It's really nothing crazy. All you really need to know is if you have a sack outlet and a removal spell, if you cast Rocco for 4, you will most likely win the game. The other deck is $4,000 and wins the game through a very similar process with more ways of going infinite, a more expensive land base, and more available combos. Budget is not a factor with these two decks though, as you typically present a win on turn 4 with both of them. Sometimes the more expensive deck can win on turn 3, but that's pretty rare, and the $400 deck can also win on turn 3. It's just even more rare. Skill is not a factor with these either. They win the exact same way, and once you learn the line, you just find better ways to execute it, and you learn when your windows are. Here's where deck building comes in. In casual or high power, you're looking to have a well-balanced deck that's really good at doing the thing. Well-rounded card draw, ramp, lots of ways to play the main strategy, and a few cards that might push you over the edge to help win a game. Simple and easy, almost cookie cutter, and I really like that. cedh is not any of these things. The normal, well-balanced formula is thrown out the window. Every card choice comes down to this. Does this help me win, and how? Rocco needs 7 mana to win. Okay, well, put a ton of mana in the deck. And I need a way to kill or sacrifice Arena Rector. Awesome. So I put plenty of ways to do that in the deck. The rest of the cards help me do that. Done and done. Deck is completed. Now, this is not necessarily the case for all cedh decks. Sometimes you are having a pretty well balanced, just mid-range list, but every single card in that list is trying to advance you as quickly as possible to your win condition, which is maybe a Demonic Consultation Thassa's Oracle combo, or an Underworld Breach line, or some sort of infinite mana outlet. You can look at most cedh decks and they follow this approach. Whether looking to win quickly or slowly, these decks consist of a lot of card advantage, ways to assemble a win quickly, and lots of interaction. Because the best way to ensure that you win, you make sure that others don't. cedh decks tend to break the typical mold of how decks are even built in the first place. So if you're ever curious on if your deck is any of these 3 categories, or you're looking to turn a deck into either of these 3 categories, ask yourself this: how does this deck approach the game of Commander? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. This is just how I have recently been thinking about the game of Casual Commander versus the game of cedh. I really enjoy cedh. It's a lot of fun for me to play this kind of format because I really don't mind winning the same way over and over and over again. And I also really enjoy playing Rocco. If you guys have any disagreements, feel free to comment down below any ways that you might think that my arguments are a little bit flawed, or how you actually see the difference between casual and competitive EDH. I really want to hear y'all's opinion. A lot of this mindset that I got really came from just talking to some of my friends that I play with, going on a ton of walks and contemplating what the game of Commander is really about, and of course just playing a lot of EDH, both casual and competitive. I want to take this time now to thank my patrons. We've actually gotten a lot recently, and I want to thank you guys all so much for supporting me. We have Red Toter, Francis Wilson, George Vasilnelis, Philly123, Chris Smith, Son of Zygote, and Ruby Storm. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for supporting me. It really means so much to me. And if you're interested in the perks that Patreon can give you, please feel free to check it out in the link down below. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends, and I'll see you guys all next time.